The Galactic Empire had ruled for millennia. It had crushed rebellions, enslaved species, and rewritten the laws of war to suit its will. It had never faced an enemy it could not break. And yet, something was happening. Something the Empire could not explain. Ships were disappearing. Patrols lost contact. Entire outposts wiped from existence without so much as a distress signal. The reports were dismissed at first. Mechanical failures, accidents, isolated skirmishes. But then, the disappearances became too precise, too coordinated. And most troubling of all, there was never any wreckage. The Imperial command dismissed it as impossible. An enemy that could strike without a trace? Absurd. But in the deep void, hidden from the Empire's all-seeing eyes, something moved. Something human. Bring us up to 60% power. Let's not wake them up just yet. Captain Elias Voss stood at the center of the Phantom's command deck, arms crossed, watching the tactical display. The massive supercarrier glided through the void, unseen, undetectable, a ghost in the dark. Around him, his crew worked in comfortable chaos. The bridge hummed with soft chatter and the occasional warning tone from the ship's systems. Unlike Imperial warships, where discipline was absolute and silence was enforced, the Phantom's bridge felt alive. A sharp whistle broke through the noise. "You know," Lieutenant Rick Anders said, leaning against his console, "for a ship named the Phantom, we make an awful lot of noise." "That's because you won't stop talking," Sienna Cade shot back, barely glancing up from her workstation. The lead engineer was hunched over a holomap, running calculations, her fingers dancing over glowing control panels. "If you used half your brain for work instead of jokes, we might actually stay hidden." Rick grinned. "Oh, please. If it weren't for me, you'd all die of boredom before the Empire even found us. If it weren't for you, we wouldn't be broadcasting our position to the enemy with your mouth alone," Yara Patel added from across the bridge, her voice laced with dry amusement. The ship's strategist, she was always 3 steps ahead, calculating, predicting, and turning every Imperial weakness into an opportunity. Elias sighed. "Focus, people. We're on approach." The chatter died down as the holographic display zoomed in on their target. An Imperial patrol, 6 ships strong, standard formation, shields at half capacity, weapons idle. "Poor bastards don't even know we're here," Rick muttered. "They will soon," Yara said, "but only for a moment." Elias turned to Sienna. "Is the pulse ready?" Sienna exhaled. "It'll work. But after we hit them, we have a minute, maybe 2, before they figure out what happened." "Then let's not waste time," Elias said. He straightened. "Engage on my mark." A deep, steady hum pulsed through the Phantom as the ship's experimental weapon powered up. It wasn't a laser, it wasn't a missile. It was something new. Something only humanity would have thought to build. A weapon designed not to destroy, but to erase. Out in the void, the Imperial patrol never saw it coming. One moment, they were idling through space. The next, darkness, every sensor dead, every system silent. Inside the Imperial lead cruiser, alarms screamed to life. "Report!" barked Commander Threx. His officers scrambled. "Sir, engines offline, shields disabled. I can't even get a star map." "What do you mean you can't?" A blinding flash. The second Imperial ship vanished. Not exploded, not disabled, just gone. Panic gripped the bridge. We've lost the Vakar. It just..." Another flash. Another ship erased. "Who is doing this?" Threx roared. There was no answer. Only silence. Then, over their fractured comms, a voice. Calm, measured. "You never should have come here." Threx felt a chill run through him. because he recognized the language. Human. Back aboard the Phantom, the bridge was controlled chaos. "That's 4 ships down," Yara called, scanning the battlefield. 2 remain. They're confused, but their leader's smart. He's already issuing distress calls. "And that's our cue to leave," Elias said. "Rick, get us out of here before they can react." "With pleasure," Rick grinned, hands flying over the controls. "Time to disappear." A low vibration ran through the Phantom as its engines ignited. The massive ship turned gracefully, an impossible feat for something of its size. But this was not an Imperial warship, built on brute force and rigid strategy. This was human engineering, adaptive, clever, unpredictable. A nightmare for an empire that had never been challenged. With a final surge of power, the Phantom flickered and was gone. Hours later, at an Imperial command station, Admiral Zorath read the latest report. He clenched his jaw. Another patrol, lost without explanation. And then, at the bottom of the report, a single encrypted message, hacked into their own system, signed with a symbol he had never seen before. But he understood the words. "You are not invincible. We are coming." For the first time in centuries, the Empire felt fear. Admiral Zorath had never lost sleep over an enemy before. He had conquered a dozen systems, crushed entire civilizations, and rewritten history with the blood of those who defied the Empire. His victories were celebrated across the core worlds, his name spoken with reverence and fear. But now he felt something foreign creeping into his mind, something he refused to acknowledge as fear. An entire fleet patrol, gone. No distress signals, no wreckage. Just an eerie, taunting message from a species the Empire had dismissed as irrelevant. His claws tightened against the armrest of his command throne. This was unacceptable. He leaned forward, eyes narrowing at the holographic star chart. "Double the patrols in the outer sectors. I want deep space sensors recalibrated for cloaking anomalies. And recall the 77th Fleet from the Harkon Expanse." The bridge fell silent. "Sir," one of his lieutenants said hesitantly, "the 77th Fleet is assigned to subjugate the—" "Do I look like I care?" Zorath growled. "A backwater uprising is nothing compared to a threat that can erase my ships like whispers in the wind. I want these humans found and obliterated. Immediately." He stood, his massive form casting a shadow over the officers beneath him. "Make no mistake, this is not a war. This is an extermination. This is a bad idea." Dr. Sienna Cade folded her arms as she stared at the holographic briefing. The plan unfolding in front of her was reckless, even by their usual standards. "We just made the Empire soil itself, and now you want to waltz into one of their outposts." Rick grinned. "Waltz is a strong word. More like sneak in, grab some souvenirs, and leave before they know what hit 'em." Elias Voss exhaled, rubbing his temple. "I agree with Sienna. This is dangerous. But we need intel. The Empire is taking us seriously now, which means we need to know what they're planning." Yara Patel, their strategist, leaned forward. "Which is why this mission is necessary. The outpost we're targeting is a listening post, a node in their information network. If we can get in, we can pull star maps, fleet movements, everything." Sienna gestured to the holomap, frustration creeping into her voice. "And if we get caught? We don't have another Phantom. This ship is our only advantage." Rick tapped a control, zooming in on the outpost. "Which is why we won't get caught." Sienna gave him a flat look. "Your overconfidence will get us all killed." Rick winked. "But what a ride it'll be." Elias sighed. "Enough." Yara, you're sure this will work? Yara's expression was unreadable. Number, but if we're going to fight an empire, we need to start thinking bigger. We need more than just ambushes. We need control. A long silence. Then Elias nodded. We do it. To the average officer, Theta 9 was a punishment assignment, a desolate outpost floating in the void, monitoring radio chatter and hyperspace lanes for signs of insurgency. It was routine, boring, which was exactly why no one saw it coming. The first sign was a flicker in their power grid. Lights dimmed for half a second, too quick to register as an issue, too slow to trigger an alarm. Then came the echoes, a duplicate of their security scans, running half a second behind. Anomalies flickered in and out of existence. Sensor feeds looped without warning. By the time they realized they were being hacked, it was already too late. We have about 10 minutes before someone notices, Sienna whispered, tapping at her wrist console. Elias, Rick, and Yara moved swiftly through the darkened corridors, avoiding security drones and auto turrets. They wore adaptive stealth suits, their outlines shifting to mimic their surroundings, human ingenuity at its finest. Rick grinned as they approached the central data hub. You ever think the Empire makes this too easy? Big bad galactic overlords, and their security is basically held together with duct tape. Elias shot him a warning look. Focus. Yara plugged a data spike into the terminal, her fingers flying over the interface. I'm in. Downloading fleet movements, patrol routes, and... She frowned. And what? Elias asked. Yara hesitated. This doesn't make sense. They've recalled an entire fleet. That's not standard protocol. Elias's stomach twisted. Recalled where? A beat. Then Yara's face went pale. Here. The words barely left her lips before alarms screamed through the outpost. Warning! Unauthorized access detected. Rick groaned. Why is it never easy? Sienna's voice crackled over comms. Guys? We have a problem. Multiple Imperial warships just dropped out of hyperspace. I think they know we're here. Elias clenched his jaw. Time to go. Now. Getting in had been easy. Getting out was a disaster. Imperial troopers flooded the corridors, automated turrets powered up, and worst of all, a cruiser was already locking onto the Phantom's position. Rick fired wildly over his shoulder as they ran, barely missing a plasma blast. You know, I'd like to point out that I called this. This is a bad plan. Shut up and move, Elias barked. Sienna's voice crackled through their earpieces. Docking Bay 3B is clear. Get there fast, or you're walking home. Yara skidded to a halt at a bulkhead door, jamming in a bypass key. Buy me 15 seconds! Elias spun, dropping 2 troopers with precise shots. Rick, grinning like a lunatic, threw a grenade behind them. 15 seconds? Pah! We got this! The explosion rattled the station. Yara's bypass worked. The doors hissed open, revealing their waiting dropship. Go! 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 They leapt inside just as the docking bay doors blasted apart. Imperial shock troops flooding in. Sienna slammed the controls. Hang on! The dropship lurched, dodging plasma fire as it screamed out into space, toward the Phantom, now barely visible under the glare of an approaching Imperial fleet. Captain? Rick said, staring at the armada closing in. You have a plan for this, right? Elias's jaw clenched, because for the first time, he didn't. Space had never felt so small. The dropship hurtled toward the Phantom, its engines screaming against the gravitational pull of the massive Imperial warships surrounding them. The outpost was now behind them, a distant burning husk, but ahead, an armada. Elias's mind raced. No escape vectors. No time to jump to FTL. Trapped. Sienna's voice was tight over the comms. The Phantom's shields won't last against that many ships. If they open fire, we're vapor. Rick leaned over Elias's seat, grinning like an idiot. Or, hear me out. We make them not open fire. Elias turned sharply. How? Rick threw up his hands. I was hoping you'd figure that part out. I just supply the optimism. Elias clenched his jaw. Think. They had one advantage. The Empire still had no idea what the Phantom actually was, and that was something they could use. Elias hit the comms, broadcasting on all Imperial frequencies. Attention, Imperial vessels! This is Captain Elias Voss of the Phantom. You are currently locked onto a classified human warship carrying experimental weapons capable of annihilating your entire fleet in a single volley. Static. A pause, then. Captain Voss? A deep, calculated voice. Admiral Zorath. You expect me to believe your primitive vessel is a threat to my fleet? Elias allowed himself a smirk. I expect you to consider the alternative. Would you really risk finding out? Yara shot him a sharp look. You're betting our lives on a bluff? Rick leaned in, whispering, Please. It's not a bluff if they believe it. More static. Zorath was calculating. Elias pressed. I suggest you check your records. Your patrols have already vanished. And I assure you, Admiral, we can do it again. More silence. Then, a bold claim. Prove it. Elias's stomach sank. Damn. Sienna's voice crackled over the encrypted channel. Elias, we can't actually do what you're suggesting. Yara exhaled sharply. Not unless you somehow have a super weapon hidden up your sleeve. Rick grinned. Oh, we don't. But they don't know that. Elias's mind worked furiously. No superweapon, no reinforcements, no escape. But there was one thing they did have. The Phantom. A ship designed to be a ghost, to disappear, to confuse, to terrify. He turned to Sienna. How much power can we push to the hull's phase disruptors? Sienna frowned. Why? Elias's grin was sharp. Because we're about to fake a superweapon. The Imperial fleet hovered, waiting. The Phantom was adrift, appearing helpless. Then, a ripple. A pulse of dark energy shimmered across the hull, distorting space around it. Sensors screamed, registering anomalies beyond their understanding. The effect was purely visual, but the Empire didn't know that. On the enemy flagship, chaos erupted. Sir, massive energy surge detected. We can't get a stable reading. It's rewriting its own gravimetric signature. Zorath's mandibles clicked in frustration. He had never seen this technology before. It didn't match any known human capabilities. Was this what had destroyed his patrols? A weapon beyond reason? Doubt. That was all Elias needed. He hit the comms again. Last chance, Admiral. Stand down, or you find out what this ship can really do. The bridge of Zorath's flagship was silent. No one wanted to be responsible for provoking the unknown. Then, withdraw. The order was reluctant, bitter, but it was there. One by one, the Imperial warships peeled away, slipping back into hyperspace. And just like that, the Phantom was alone. Sienna sagged against the console, exhaling hard. I cannot believe that worked. Yara rubbed her temples. I need a drink, a strong one. Rick beamed, slapping Elias's shoulder. And that, my friends, is why I fly with this guy. Elias allowed himself a small, exhausted smile. But deep down, he knew this wasn't over. Zorath had backed down, but not forever. The Empire would regroup. They would analyze, strategize, and come back stronger. They needed a real plan, because next time, it wouldn't be a bluff. Silence. Deep, endless. In the void where the Phantom had tricked the Imperial fleet into retreating, a storm was brewing. Elias knew it. Everyone did. Zorath would return, and this time he wouldn't hesitate. They had bought time, nothing more. And now, humanity's only hidden supercarrier would have to do what it was never designed for: fight. The moment the enemy fleet re-entered real space, the Phantom was already there. A ghost, hidden in their blind spot, invisible. Elias clenched the armrests of his command chair. If this didn't work, they'd be atomized before they could blink. Zorath's command ship loomed ahead. Sienna whispered, "We're in range." Yara's fingers flew over the console, hijacking their authentication codes. Now. A tense heartbeat. Then, "We're in." The fleet didn't react. To them, the Phantom was just another Imperial warship. A slow grin spread across Elias's face. Perfect. Sienna stood before the holomap, arms crossed, staring at the data pouring in from their long-range sensors. "It's worse than we thought." The crew gathered on the bridge, tension thick as steel. A new fleet had emerged, 3 times larger than before. They weren't retreating, they were regrouping. Yara cursed under her breath. "We can't bluff that many ships, no way." Rick nodded, uncharacteristically serious. "Yeah, even I'm fresh out of optimism." Elias exhaled, mind racing. If they ran, the Empire would chase them. If they stayed, they'd be obliterated. There was only one way out, a way that no sane commander would attempt. Elias turned sharply to Sienna. "Can we disable the jump inhibitors?" Sienna hesitated. "You mean their jump inhibitors?" Rick blinked. "Wait, you're not actually suggesting—" Elias's gaze was ice. "We jump into their fleet." Silence. Then Yara laughed, a sharp, disbelieving chuckle. "You are insane!" And yet, her laughter faded. It could work. If they infiltrated the fleet's formation before the inhibitors were active, the Phantom could get in undetected, strike at the heart of the enemy before they even knew what was happening. A surgical strike. One shot. One chance. Sienna sighed. "It's suicide." Rick grinned. "Yeah, but it's our kind of suicide." Elias turned to Yara. "Can you get us through their security net?" She cracked her knuckles. "Oh, I'll do more than that. I'll make them think we belong there." The moment the enemy fleet re-entered real space, the Phantom was already there. A ghost, hidden in their blind spot, invisible. Elias clenched the armrests of his command chair. If this didn't work, they'd be atomized before they could blink. Zorath's command ship loomed ahead. Sienna whispered, "We're in range." Yara's fingers flew over the console, hijacking their authentication codes. Now. A tense heartbeat. Then, "We're in." The fleet didn't react. To them, the Phantom was just another Imperial warship. A slow grin spread across Elias's face. Perfect. Zorath stood on the bridge of his flagship, mandibles twitching in irritation. The human ship's so-called superweapon had been a deception. But now, he had them trapped. "Prepare to—" Warning, unauthorized system access detected. Zorath's eyes widened. The ship's shields flickered, weapons deactivated, communications cut. The Phantom had done the impossible. They had turned the Empire's own fleet against itself. A single message appeared on every Imperial screen. A simple human phrase. "Checkmate." Then, the Phantom fired. A single surgical strike. Right into the reactor core. The flagship detonated, a blinding cascade of fire and twisted metal. The fleet broke. Without leadership, without coordination, the Imperial forces scattered. Some ran. Some turned on each other. Humanity had done what no species had dared. They had humbled the Galactic Empire. And the Phantom? Gone. By the time the enemy forces could react, the Supercarrier had vanished into the void. On the bridge, the crew sat in shocked silence. Then Rick exhaled. We actually did it. Yara grinned. We made history. Sienna leaned back, exhausted. I'm sleeping for a week. Elias gazed at the stars ahead. The war wasn't over, but humanity had just proven something. They weren't prey. They weren't weak. And the next time the Empire came looking for a fight, they'd know exactly who they were dealing with. Humanity.